Қайырлы күн. Бүгін бізде қонақта жасыл энергетика, табиғатты қорғау, қоршаған орта тақырыптарында Нобель сыйлығы иегері Рае Квон Чунг мырза. First of all, welcome to Astana. So, is it your first time in here, and how are you feeling so far?
Oh, I've been coming here many times since 2007. Since I proposed new idea of green growth, green economic growth idea in 2005. Since then, I have been visiting Astana many times because Kazakhstan was one of the first country that has been accepting the green growth ideas from the beginning. So I have been coming here and I have been giving new ideas to your people here. So I've been visiting Astana so many times since then.
Mm-hmm. So you are already used to?
Yeah, I'm very much used to Kazakhstan.
That's great. That's great. So global warming, it's one of the main threats nowadays. However, there's, as we talked before, there are some regional problems that people are worried about more. For example, in Central Asia, there is a drying rivers, lakes that's happening in Central Asia and in Kazakhstan. So what the government should put priority on? Don't these two problems contradict to each other? Or is there any problem that solves both global warming problem and drought, you know?
Yeah. I think you're raising many issues at the same time. First of all, let me emphasize that Central Asia will be one of the first regions that will be affected very seriously by the global warming. Now they are not calling it global warming, they are calling it global boiling. Boiling means water boiling. So global boiling, which means the degree of the warming. It's not just warming, it's like a heating and boiling stage. And one of the most serious phenomenon happening in Central Asia, the permafrost, the ice on the top of the Tianshan mountains and all these mountains, on top of that you have the snow caps, right? There's a permanent snow caps there. But they are melting down. They are melting down because the snow cap has been the source of water for your survival in Central Asia. But because of the global warming, this permafrost and ice cap is now melting down and shrinking, and keep on shrinking. Sooner or later, this permafrost will disappear. Then the source of water for the people in Central Asia will be very seriously affected. And not only that, but the temperature is already rising very fast, especially in Central Asia, West Asia, and Middle East and Northern Africa. These regions are expected to be suffering the most from the climate change. So Central Asia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, all these countries will be one of the first countries that will suffer most. So you have to be prepared for it. And the number one issue is on agriculture, but also water shortage. So you have to strengthen your water infrastructure. You have to strengthen to recycle water and to keep and contain rainfall, not just to disappear, but you have to try to capture the rainwater. Otherwise, you will have a serious problem. So this is very serious issues, but the water issue is very complicated because there are 5 Central Asian countries here. The rivers are flowing through many countries. So it's a cross-border issue, and so very politically complicated. So this is why your regional cooperation for the regional common good is very important. I heard that your president has proposed recently to set up an office and the ministry to deal with climate change and water shortage issues in Central Asia. It's a very good initiative and leadership, but not just the setting up an office. That does not mean that it will be a solution. You have to come up with a very innovative, concrete actions and roadmap. Otherwise, even with the office, but there's no action, then you cannot solve the problem. So setting up an office is just an initial step, but you have to come up with a very innovative idea. I've been working on some advices and ideas for that.
Actually, we've re-established the Ministry of Water in this field. So maybe you have some ideas, advices, like in 2 words.
Before I talk in detail about only about water shortage, let me tell you something more broad issue. How the ecological crisis, including global boiling, water shortage, drought, all these things can be tackled by each country. First of all, at the moment, the current situation is we have a Paris Climate Agreement, but this Paris Climate Agreement is based on NDC. NDC means a nationally determined contribution. It's a voluntary pledge. So each government make, for example, Kazakhstan made a voluntary pledge that you will reach carbon neutral by 2060. So this is a kind of voluntary pledge. But 2060 is too far away. I'm not sure whether the climate will wait until 2060. Because we are talking about 2030, within 5-6 years, already the climate warming will go above 1.5 degree, which has been the ceiling we have agreed globally, but the ceiling is already being,
we'll talk about later on carbon-free economy and green energy. About water, you are also familiar with Aral problem, and there is another lake, Balkash, which is towarding to the problem that was faced by Aral.
Aral Sea is one of the greatest, the ecological tragedy of the 20th century, and also it is because of, as you know, the cotton cultivation, and the cotton is consuming huge amount of water, and so now, but in some countries like Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan not that much, but in Uzbekistan, cotton industry remains as a backbone, as a very important sector of the country economy. So it's very difficult to solve the problem. So we need the technology, but at the same time, it cannot be only done by the government. It can be done. Has to be the responsibility has to be shared and supported by the people as well. But the current situation is we don't have a system where the people can share the responsibility. We don't have such a system. People are just left out. As I mentioned earlier, NDC. People think NDC is a commitment of the government. So people think that government will take care of it. So it's not my business.
And we were told by some experts that they proposed a solution when we can plant trees on the shores of Aral. Does it work ecologically?
That can help, but actually it is not restoring Aral Sea, but it is just an adaptation because of desertification. So you are trying to reduce the negative impact of desertification by planting trees. But since the region is already drying up, it's quite difficult challenge to bring up the trees there. So it is an adaptation, but it's not a prevention or restoration. In order to restore, first of all, we have to improve water efficiency. So the cotton industry has to use less water. So we have to come up with an innovative technological solution how cotton can be grown with less water. So we have to reduce the waste of water and the recycle water. So these kind of things need quite an investment for technology and also infrastructure. But this requires a lot of money. And it cannot be done only by the government. This is why I'm saying that we have to come up with a system where the people can share the responsibility and support the government action. Because at the moment, people are left out. For example, for renewable energy or water, for example, the water price is here quite cheap. Energy price also very cheap. So you cannot expect energy efficiency or water efficiency, and you cannot mobilize funding to improve infrastructure. So, but in order to raise the funding, you need to raise the price of water and energy. But it's very difficult, socially very difficult, politically very difficult. So we have to come up with very innovative ideas. My suggestion is that I'm proposing to countries here in the Central Asia, me first campaign, which means I first share the responsibility by paying higher price for green energy and also reducing water wastage. So how we can do it? We can bring in two price system. Now we are having only one price for electricity, one price for water. So we can bring in green price for energy, for electricity. So if people voluntarily who are willing, they can pay higher price to use green energy. And the companies also can choose to use green energy by paying higher price. Why? Maybe you wonder, well, who will pay higher price for? Yeah, we'll be having that kind of question, right? But I have met with a company, Coca-Cola, in Uzbekistan. Nowadays, climate change is quite a sensitive issue for many young generation. People are very much concerned about climate change. So, for example, if Coca-Cola by paying higher price and use solar energy for their production of Coca-Cola,
ESG
then not only ESG, but it's a marketing. So if they do that, they can get a certificate that this is a carbon-free Coca-Cola. So they can publicize that our product is a carbon-free product. Then the climate change sensitive students, young generation, they will prefer Coca-Cola because they are aware, they know about the issue. So there will be some companies voluntarily choose to pay higher price for their ESG, but for their marketing strategy, because it is beneficial for them. Because by using renewable energy, by paying higher price, they can sell more product. So this is a win-win solution. But in order to make this kind of scheme to function, you have to have a green consumers. There has to be many green consumers who are aware about, sensitive about climate change issues, and they should choose carbon-free products. So you need to have a social campaign, me first campaign. So I can choose carbon-free product. So if people choose carbon-free product, sometimes it can be more expensive than fossil fuel products. But still, people should choose carbon-free product voluntarily. This is not imposing anybody mandatorily. You cannot do the mandatory imposition because it's a social problem, political problem. So we can start with a voluntary scheme. This is I call me first campaign. But if Coca-Cola started to do it, then maybe Pepsi-Cola will follow because they don't want to lose the competition with Coca-Cola. Then Pepsi-Cola has to use renewable energy. Then these companies have started to use renewable energy by paying higher price. Then government can use this money because they pay higher price. This extra money for expansion of renewable energy. So this is the kind of scheme. Even for water, You can supply the water to the companies, but you can charge green price for water infrastructure investment. So some companies choose to use green price and paying higher price for their water. Then they say our water is a green water. And then this will be appealing to the consumers. So this is the kind of voluntary scheme. And then this is opening up an opportunity for the consumers to share the responsibility. We cannot just expect government to pay from the budget. Government doesn't have budget for it. So this is the new idea I'm proposing here in Central Asia.
Yeah, actually it's a great idea, because one of the main problem of green energy and green economy in Kazakhstan is that people and business expect the government should subsidize those initiations. So in general, does green investment like pay off itself, or is it like more about ecology?
I think it is my idea of double price, differentiated price with the green price system and the regular price system. So we need to have a two-price system, because all the problem is happening because of fixed price. Whether it's clean or dirty, the prices are same.
Yeah, we for electricity and for heat we use coal mostly, and also we understand that we need to invest in green energy, which is wind, solar energy, and it's more expensive than coal. So is there any solution?
That's why I'm suggesting that you can have a green price electricity. Already Germany is doing it, and even United States is doing it. In some countries, consumers can choose whether I should use just the coal electricity or solar electricity. They can choose. But solar is more expensive. Some people,
and it is expensive.
Yeah, but some people choose even more expensive solar electricity because they are concerned about climate change.
Nuclear power plants. People in Kazakhstan, they are worried about its accidents happened around the world. We understand it's cheap, it's green.
No, that's not true. Let me clarify. Many people have some misunderstanding. Nuclear is cheap and stable, all these kind of things. But in fact, nuclear is not cheap at all. Because you are only thinking about the uranium price. So you are only calculating uranium price and the electricity price. So you have a misperception that it's cheap. But you have to think about when you build a reactor, after 20, 30 years later, you have to dismantling it. The cost of dismantling is even more expensive than building the nuclear. In Germany, they are still dismantling the old one. They're paying billions of dollars in dismantling it. It takes so many years. So if you take a long-term view, nuclear reactor is not cheap at all. This is not my idea. It's already been, the many report is already available. You can just search Google. In IEA, Institute for Energy Agency, International Energy Agency, OECD, they already had a calculation of including all these prices. Not just the uranium, but only people think of uranium, then have misperception is cheap. But if you take care of the whole life cycle, it's not cheap. And also, but in the case of uranium, nuclear reactor has a very certain role, important role. They can have a very stable production. So they can have a base production of supply of electricity, because power system needs a stable base supply. So nuclear can have that kind of function. Even solar and wind, there are so much volatility. So you cannot totally depending on wind and solar. But the nuclear can provide some stability. So you can do it for the stability purpose, but not because of the price. Also in case of Kazakhstan, you have a huge land spaces. So you can dispose of the waste in the remote areas where people don't live. So you can do it more safely in here, Kazakhstan. But in the case of a country like Korea, we cannot do it. Our country is so small, land space small, so I don't think it's possible, because we still don't find any place to dispose of the nuclear waste, because nobody wants to have the nuclear waste in their backyard. Nobody agrees it. So we still don't find any place.
This year and the past few years, we have faced forest fires, as you may know. In several regions of Kazakhstan, there were huge forest fires. Yeah, it is directly affects on nature, animals, even people. And is there any negative consequences for also atmosphere and like global warming again?
Of course, it is happening because of the global boiling. Not only Kazakhstan, Greece. During this last summer, so many tourists who were sightseeing, tourists in Rhodos Island. The Rhodos Island is one of the very favorite spots for the tourists. It was engulfed, the flame so strong, so many tourists has to run away. Some of them hospitalized because of the wildfire. But not only Greece, Vancouver, everywhere, Siberia, everywhere. So it's because of the high temperature. Then at certain degree of high temperature, then trees simply burn. So it will be getting worse and worse as the temperature goes up.
You mentioned that COVID pandemic was brought up by climate change.
Actually, COVID-19, we don't have a very direct connection between climate change and the COVID-19. But more scary thing is the permafrost region in Siberia and in Canada. These regions are getting melting, and all the viruses are frozen under the ground. They are coming up above, and nobody knows what kind of viruses are hidden under the ground. And many of them will be already appearing to the atmosphere. So this is more scary thing. And even already 4-5 years ago, Harvard University released a report that already more than hundreds of viruses are potentially threatening human being, because there are so many old, ancient viruses. We have never been experienced them. So this kind of risks are always there.
Mm-hmm. And also in future, we may also face another pandemics when the global warming.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Is there like risky regions that we may expect another type of virus? Maybe some regions in Central Asia, maybe, or another.
Already there are many projections by the climate experts. They're making projections. But what is very interesting is this year, what happening this year is already making all those projections wrong. It is already above, much more serious than expected. Because many of the projections are saying that this kind of a serious problem will happen maybe 2040 or 2050. But it's already happening. So much faster than many of those projections are anticipated. So you never know. Our capacity to make some projections is very limited. There are many factors and very complex. So our capacity of making projection is can go wrong at any time. But what this year is especially typical, because this year is going to be recorded as the hottest year so far during the last 2,000 years. So, but the problem is it will be going higher and higher. This will not stop this year, but it will go up and up. So it's getting more serious. But this is why we have to think about, are we ready or are we prepared to tackle this problem?
Are we ready? Are we prepared?
Yeah, I don't think so. No, we are not prepared. Why? First of all, the free market system. Free market system. What is free market system? Free market system is the cheapest price will win the market, right? You have to produce something cheapest. Otherwise, you are losing the competition. So you cannot prevent using fossil fuel. It's the cheapest. So as long as we continue this kind of a cheapest economic competition system. Very difficult to address this issue. This is why I'm proposing not free market, but sustainable market. Sustainable market means we should have a price that should internalize the price of carbon, the price of ecology into the market price. Because actually we are paying not the full price, because we are not paying the price of carbon. We are using everything, glass, whatever. We use a lot of energy here, but we didn't pay the price of carbon when this glass was produced. But we have to change it, that we have to start to pay the price of carbon. But we cannot impose to everybody in the society. It will be a political problem, social problem. So what I'm proposing is, we can start this system with those people who are willing to pay. So we start with those people who are ready and willing to pay for it. In Korea, we had a public survey. 48% of the people say that they are willing to pay higher price for electricity because of the climate change issues.
It's a quite good number.
45% no. So maybe in Kazakhstan could be different. Maybe 48% in Korea is quite high. I was surprised. Maybe in Kazakhstan, I'm not sure. It can be a little lower than that. But the number is not important. What is important is, okay, whether it is 5%, fine. Why don't we start with those 5% first and show an example to the rest of the society, rather than just waiting and doing nothing? That's my suggestion. So I call it Me First campaign.